Welcome everyone to Chiro Author Insights. Super excited to have with me Andrew Powell today, an incredible friend and colleague. I'm actually in a mastermind group with Andrew, so I know about his expertise in practice, his skill set as a practitioner, and incredibly excited to have him on board to be able to speak with you today. Firstly, his book, which has been a phenomenal impact on chiropractors wanting to understand their psychology around wealth and expand their practice. The money is in the mindset. But in addition to that, Hill Spinal Health, his chiropractic practice up in Sydney, is amazing with the work he does. He's got an incredible background with kinesiology and breakthrough in terms of people's health and well-being. It's super exciting to have you here, Andrew. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
So it's my honour and pleasure. So, I've known you a long time now, a number of years in fact, and it's been exciting to get to know you and to learn more about your expertise. And I know what you're going to share today is going to be really valuable to the listeners, both from a perspective of writing books, but also understanding some of the psychology around being able to experience more as a result of practice. So before we talk more about writing books and the process that you went through, your book is really, really important for practitioners. Tell us a little bit about The Money is in the Mindset.
Sure, mate. The book really came about because I was at the time coaching other practitioners, primarily chiropractors, but also a few other natural health, naturopath, acupuncturists, that sort of stuff. And you mentioned I do a lot of kinesiology, a lot of mindset work. And what I found was that we were uncovering really consistent beliefs around money in a lot of those practitioners. A lot of us got into doing what we do because we love it and we want to help people. But at the same time, we deserve to earn a good living. And many of them weren't doing that. They were kind of sabotaging themselves on the level of creating freedom and abundance. And so as I started to free out of some of that stuff myself and see big changes in my own life, I had people in my mastermind group at the time asking me, well, whatever you're doing, can I have some of that? So I started working with practitioners, and really out of that developed a course and ultimately a book. So that's kind of, the book's designed as a practical manual to identify where your blocks and limiting beliefs around creating freedom and wealth with your practice are, and some techniques to actually start to shift those.
And I think there are so many chiropractors that do limit their potential, that sabotage their success. And if they're not aware of those unconscious programs or those limiting beliefs, and if they don't work with a practitioner to create that breakthrough, they limit their capacity to serve, to impact, to add value. And so this is such a vital, important work that you're doing. And although we're going to talk about the book from a practice perspective, tell me just really quickly, what would be one of the most significant things you see with practitioners that are limiting their potential and preventing them from growing or experiencing the success that they would like and in fact deserve?
There's a bunch, and there's the 7 keys I listed in the book. The first one really I talked about is just their attitude towards money. A lot of them simply have some version of the money is evil belief, or money is bad, evil, or negative. They have judgments around money. They haven't necessarily grown up. In fact, really, unless you've grown up with generational wealth, I can guarantee that you've got limiting beliefs about money itself. And if you have a hidden belief that says money is evil and wealthy people are bad people, then on a subconscious level, you're going to do everything you can to make sure you don't become one of those evil, nasty, wealthy people.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. And unless you're doing the work on this and have somebody to guide you through that process, it can, stop you from achieving so much that you deserve to achieve. And in fact, it's so important for you to achieve, because one thing about money that I think has been something I've become increasingly aware, the greater the service you provide, the greater the impact that you deliver through the work that you do, the greater you're rewarded for that. And so when you look at money as an equation of the contribution you make and the value you provide, it only makes sense that we are well rewarded because we are making that level of impact. I know you talk about that within your book, and that's something that's really important for practitioners to understand. So
Absolutely.
I think it's great the work that you've done on the book, and I know, as I say, you've coached with practitioners and you've mentored in that area, so it's really valuable. To the book, now, when I talk with practitioners, and we're talking about often writing a book to be able to grow their practice, to be a marketing or an attraction tool, or help us a conversion tool. And when we talk about practitioners and their health-related books, we can talk in the context of that. But I just want to briefly, you said that you have a course, and the book acts as a workbook for that. How do you bridge that gap between, it's almost pivoting from being in clinic to being able to serve your colleagues? So in this case, your book became a way to pivot your practice from clinical to collegial. So tell me about what in your mind led you to say, and I said people were talking to you, asking you questions, how you're doing what you're doing. What was the point of pivot that led you to move in that direction of saying, I can work with my colleagues and add value in that regard?
Mate, for me, it happened very organically at the time. I was part of a mastermind group of natural health practitioners, and which was incredibly helpful. But within the context of that group, you know, it inevitably comes, but the people who are having success are the ones who end up answering the questions and leading the way to the others. So that sort of process organically happened over time, to the point where I was actually offered to buy into ownership of that group and start coaching people. And it just kind of organically turned into a coaching business. It wasn't something I intended to do. And both the program and the book came out of that. I started working one-on-one with people, and I simply didn't have enough time to work one-on-one with everybody. So I needed to create some more leverage tools that allowed me to help people in a way that was sustainable, because I was still running my practice at the time. I mean, I'm still running my practice, but back then I didn't have kids, which made it a little easier. But, you know, I needed to create some scope and some leverage. And so I took what I was doing one-on-one and then turned it into a home study course, turned it into a book, turned it into a kind of an online one-to-many mentoring program to open up scope to serve more people.
I think that's a really important understanding in terms of breakthrough. You used a couple of words that I think really important. The first one was leverage. The writing a book and writing a course allows you to leverage your time, and then your scope. You use the word scope there as well, increasing the capacity to work outside what you do clinically, and broaden the area of influence you have. So, how do you feel that having a book made that more possible or allowed for that to unfold? You said organically, and I'm going to come back to that point too, because that's so important. But how do you think it allowed it to expand into that area, the book and the course?
Look, I mean, the process started organically, but it then became strategic in terms of, well, how do we make the most out of this opportunity? And I know that's, you know, very much a part of what you're teaching people, which is super valuable. It was part of a system. So the book actually, when people purchased the book, they got in the book a voucher for 2 tickets to a workshop, and they would come along to a free one-day workshop with me. At that workshop, I would provide so much value. You know, people just would rave about it being life-changing this one day. And of course, if you can provide that in a free workshop, then people are going to want to do more with you. So off the back of that, I sold various things over time. You know, I sold people initially into a 10-week program, and then ultimately into longer coaching programs. I created a home study course that went deeper off each aspect of the book, a 3-day boot camp, you know, a whole lot of, like, once you kind of build that tribe of people who love what you do, then it becomes just about finding ways to serve them, really. So, you know, the book was a very considered part of that strategy. And along the way, I sold, you know, I don't even know how many, but probably a couple of thousand books all up, you know, and I used to sell them for $25 on my website. So that in itself was kind of a revenue stream. It led to being invited to speak on stages, corporate speaking events. You know, the largest sort of groups I talked to were like 250 people. So it opened up a lot of doors. You know, it creates a lot of credibility. It really, it opens a lot of doors and creates a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant. And I want to circle back because, again, I introduced that as a pivot from being able to move from clinical to collegial, which I think obviously it has done with you. But that very idea of writing a book, starting organically, I mean, for you it happened organically because you were in an environment where people recognized you had expertise and authority and wanted to draw on that. It could be happening in practice as well for a person. There, you know, we're in practice for a chiropractor. We've done lots of work in our own life. Maybe it's a practitioner who does plays golf and just loves their golf, amazing at their golf, and they have all of these clients saying, well, what are you doing to improve your handicap? And all of a sudden, there's this pivotal point where you can say, I can adjust them, or I can also show, you know, write a book on how chiropractic influences and affects adjustment, expand that into a course, and all of a sudden you pivoted again to within your own niche, your own interest, your own expertise, to be able to leverage and increase the scope of the work that you do using those two words you identified. So it can happen organically, a conversation that continually repeatedly happens in practice, or it can happen, as it did with you, within one of your mastermind groups, opening up that scope, that opportunity to expand what you do within your sphere of influence. So I just wanted to highlight that, because I think that was really valuable that you were able to see that, and then move beyond the organic aspect of that to design a way forward. So that was just a breakthrough for me listening to you. So I thought the listeners and the viewers would want to share in that breakthrough too. Now, I've got another question for you, though. I think this is something, again, people would really want to understand. Writing a book. So how did you personally go about writing that book? And then also beyond that, building the course. So this isn't just something that people can easily or effortlessly do without some considered approach. So what were your considerations? What were your thoughts? And how did you execute that?
Mate, I was lucky. I had a coach and a guide who'd helped me through it, whose suggestion it was, actually, to be honest. He was the one who suggested it in the first place. But as soon as he did, I could see the value. I mean, one of the things you mentioned was a conversation you've had over and over. And we've all had that in practice, right? Where you say the same thing like a million times. So it's like, well, why don't you take that and put it in a book? That's leverage right there. So he suggested it, and he guided us through a process. We actually went and locked ourselves away for it was either 3 or 4 weekends over the course of about a year, and followed a structure somewhat similar to what I've been working through with you recently. So, we're just sitting down, looking at a blank page from scratch. It's like writing a book is a huge mountain to climb. But we used the process of interviewing each other to kind of draw out some of our knowledge, in a conversational tone. Which gave us then a basis for the book. There was a whole lot then of rewriting and editing and that sort of stuff. And there was some considerations right from the beginning around what's the purpose of this book, and directing it in that way, rather than just blurting out information, really putting a bit of strategy around it in terms of what are the goals that you want to achieve once you have this book out there.
That's great.
So I got to say, the process I used was great, but what I'm seeing in the work with you is like 10x that. It's basically a similar system, but some of those key little tweaks that I'm noticing just have taken to a whole new level.
I appreciate that. And one question extending beyond that, when you're looking through that process of designing the way forward, what were the obstacles or blocks that you faced with writing? Because I know a lot of people say, look, I don't know what the next step is, or I can't find the right words, or where were your biggest challenges, obstacles, or blocks?
For me, the actual writing part came fairly easily. I've always been a natural writer, but having a coherent structure to put it into was really important, so that it forms a coherent book instead of just a big blurt of information. Having somebody really take care of and guide me through the practical steps in terms of like, how do I find somebody to proofread this thing, and how do I find somebody to typeset it into the right format so that Amazon will accept it, and how do I even go through that whole process of having Amazon accept it and getting it printed, and all of those practicalities I had absolutely no idea about. So having somebody just show me step by step, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then now I want you to call this person and do that. That was super, super valuable, because it meant that all I needed to do, apart from coordinating that stuff, really was the bit that I'm good at, which was communicate the information that I was passionate about. When all those other things are taken care of, a lot of those blocks are removed. It made it a much easier process.
That's great. And honestly, I write quite easily too, but I don't type my books up. I speak my books in that conversational style, and that's how I recommend chiropractors do it, because you're right, we have these conversations time and again, all of the time, and when we can have a conversation with those and record those conversations, the ability to translate that into the written word in a conversational style. Sure, we need to refine it, we need to edit, we need to improve it, but the conversational style book is really paramount for readability in today's reading profile as well. So I think you've really highlighted some key points there, which is great. If moving forward, and I know you're writing a book at the moment, I don't want you to talk so much about that idea you have behind the book, because I want you to be able to keep that as an incredible launch process. when you're writing now a book for a practice, from a practice growth perspective, what do you think is the most important thing to take from your clinical experience and put it into the book? So what do you want to be able to do to share that message?
I think there's certain key things that, pick any disease process or whatever, and you could go out and read 20 books on it. There's a ton of information. They'll all say roughly the same thing. But as chiropractors, we have a unique perspective. And, many of us, like myself, have almost 20 years in practice. There's key insights and things that I've seen or noticed or developed myself around those things that I just don't see out there in the kind of more academic style literature. So communicating some of those, I think, is really key. And I think when you think about, well, what are the questions that my patients have? What are the conversations that I'm having over and over? Those are really important as well, because you kind of have real life market research right there in terms of what is it that people want to know, and what, you notice the things that when you communicate in a certain way, they light people up, as opposed to when you communicate in a certain way and people just, glaze over. So having that real level of person-to-person connection and a level of real, genuine passion about that topic, I think those things really make for a much, much more readable and ultimately a much, like a better service. If people are going to actually read your book, enjoy it, relate to it, get something out of it, and it's ultimately going to cause them to take an action or a series of actions that benefit their health, then you've done something really worthwhile and really valuable.
That's beautiful. Andrew, look, that's gold, because that's the reason I'm so passionate about helping chiropractors write books and get their books out there. Again, having done it myself, I know the reward that I feel when I see a patient read my book, implement and apply that in their lives and have breakthrough. And I know the value that chiropractic as a profession provides to the world. And there are hundreds, thousands of people out there writing books that, some of which are questionable at best, others which are not readable because they're so in depth and so detailed and don't get completed. And yet the chiropractic message is so beautiful, so powerful, so profound. And if there were thousands of chiropractors writing thousands of best-selling books, it would change the health of our patients, of our communities, of the lives of the people around us. And so when you talk about having a clear that clear message and being willing to share, and what that means, that's why I'm so passionate. So I just think you really brought a point forward that's so important for chiropractors to know, to understand, and to hear that no one can say what you're saying. No one can twist the information that is out there in the same way that you can. The uniqueness that you bring to every interaction, to every conversation, is of paramount value and importance to the health and lives of your patients and the community. So I got so excited when you said that, because that's really why I do all of this, is because it's so important. And I know that you do that really well. You write beautifully. There's an elegance about it. There's a poignancy about it. There's a depth about it as well. So before we finish up here, is there any closing words that you might have for the chiropractors out there who are thinking, well, should I write a book? Or, how valuable has it been to you to write a book, and what does it mean for you? So what could the practitioner think or expect if they were to do the same?
Sure. And thanks, mate. Thank you. I appreciate your words. I do, like, one thing that really, as you were describing what it does, I thought another thing it really does is it provides a pathway into your office for people who perhaps would otherwise never take that step of stepping into a chiropractic office. It's a bit scary to actually physically go somewhere, put your money down, put your body on the line, who knows what's going to happen to it. Much easier for someone to leaf through a book and read a few stories and things like that. We still service such a small percentage of the population. I think this is just a great outreach tool for people to invite people into our office in a way that's non-threatening, that they can have some understanding of what we're about. So there's a percentage of people who may never set foot in a chiropractic office that this gives them a pathway to do that. So that's for the patients. And I think for the practitioner, there's so many benefits. I mean, there's obvious benefits in terms of around perception, right? When you tell people that you're a published author, rightly or wrongly, there's this elevation of perception there where they think, wow, you must know what you're talking about. And, you know, that's a good thing in and of itself. It, like I said, it opens doors for you. You know, it opens doors to speaking opportunities, to all sorts of things that that otherwise may not be there. And not only that, but it even just on a internal, personal level, I think most practitioners know far more than they realize they know, and they're far more expert than they give themselves credit for. And when you can put that down in a book form and you can actually pick it up and go, check it out, like here it is, there's something that happens on that level as well that just helps you feel good about who you are and what you do. And that's enormously valuable in and of itself.
That's beautiful. That's a great way to close. Dr. Andrew Powell, you are an incredible chiropractor. I know you've been able to help so many other chiropractors break through their limitations and add added value to their lives and to the lives of the patients that you've had in your practice and the community. You have multiple associates who you've helped grow into great chiropractors as well. I'm grateful for the time that I've had to spend with you and the learning that has come from those interactions. Thank you for your time today. I'm grateful, and I continue to wish you every success, and I'm looking forward to your next book as well.
Thanks, Marcus. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.